AITA for giving my son non-vegan food behind my wife's back. I am 32M and my wife is 33F. We have been married for 8 years and have a 12-IO son together. About 6 years ago, my wife decided to go vegan. She was sent the documentary Dominion by a vegan friend of hers, and ever since has said non-vegan food is revolting and refuses to eat it. After a long conversation, I agreed to go vegetarian and be vegan in the house and around her, which she was happy with. She also decided our son should be vegan, which after seeing a dietitian I also agreed with. Things have been fine with this arrangement until a few months ago, when I began finding wrappers from non-vegan candy, and even burgers from McDonald's in my son's school bag, which he had been buying with chore money. I had a conversation with my son, and he confessed he felt lonely and excluded eating vegan around his friends, and that they always had much better candy than he did, and it wasn't fair. I decided I didn't want him spending his pocket money on snacks and throwing out the vegan snacks we actually brought him instead of buying games, etc. It made no sense. But I also know the way my wife feels about non-vegan products, so I began buying my son what he wanted on our way to football practice instead. Long story short, my wife recently found out what has been going on and completely flipped out. She called me an animal abuse enabler and a few other names and said I was corrupting our son. Now, she is not speaking to me. Our son panicked and told her I had bought the snacks for him, and he didn't know they weren't vegan. I don't blame him for that. He just doesn't want to be in trouble with Mom. Story 2. AITA for telling my wife off after getting our daughter to cut her hair off, even after being told not to. My wife is currently battling cancer, and one of the things she's told me she's struggling with the most was losing her hair. She's been given a near 100% chance of survival since we caught it early, but the chemotherapy has destroyed her hair anyway, and she had to shave what was left of it off a few weeks ago. Not long after that, she suggested we attempt to get our 17-year-old daughter, Anna, to do so as well. Anna has very long hair that she puts a lot of care into, so I felt it was appropriate to ask her in private if she would be willing to do such a thing. She told me that she didn't want to cut her hair, and I figured that was the end of that. However, yesterday they came home from a girls' shopping trip, something they do every so often, and Anna had a buzzed haircut. That struck me as odd after what she'd said. So after dinner I talked to her, and she told me that my wife had said she would never forgive Anna if she didn't show her support by buzzing her head. I asked her if she was happy about it, and she said that she wasn't. When I went to bed, I brought it up with my wife, and she said, "It was Anna's choice to or not. I just told her how I'd see the situation." I told her off, saying she needed to respect Anna's personal choices, and that a 17-year-old girl being against shaving her head wasn't exactly out of the ordinary. However, my wife simply said it was to show support for her. I've been sleeping on the couch since. I love my wife, and I understand that she's going through something traumatic. However, her attitude comes off as very manipulative to me, and that's not behavior I feel I can personally accept. I'm not sure if I can move past this to continue the relationship. Story 3. AITA for walking out of a wedding I was a part of and ruining the day. I dated my ex-boyfriend John for 4 years, and got serious enough where we started planning for our future. Wedding, kids, etc. I thought we were pretty happy, but last year, he dumped me pretty suddenly. I tried to figure out what went wrong, but he said it was personal, and that I should respect his space. During this time, my best friend Stacy and her fiancé Tom were my rocks, letting me crash at their place and just being overwhelmingly supportive and loving. When Stacy asked me to be her maid of honor, I thought it was a no-brainer and happily took on the task. Fast forward to what happened this weekend. The morning of the wedding, Tom asked me to meet him for breakfast, super early in the AM before all of the festivities. I thought it was weird, but assumed he maybe wanted me to pass something on to Stacy. What happened instead was that Tom let me know that a few days prior, Stacy admitted to him that she had an affair with John, which was what led to my breakup. He said that Stacy wanted to come clean to start their marriage fresh, and that he was forgiving her to move forward. He had gone back and forth between telling me, and finally decided to spill the beans. I guess he had expected me to forgive Stacy too because the affair was so long ago. The opposite pretty much happened, and I just walked out on the wedding. It ended up causing a huge mess because I was basically running the whole show. Stacy made me do everything, so she didn't even know what was happening at certain times or who to call. Not only that, but everyone realized that the MOH wasn't there. She had headshots and bios of the party on her wedding page, and news of the affair eventually got out because her cousin knew John. Stacy and Tom have both been slandering me online now, saying that I ruined their once-in-a-lifetime moment. Some of their friends are on their side, saying that I should have handled the situation more privately and at least stuck out the wedding since it was so last minute. I personally don't know what Tom expected, but either way, I've been getting bombarded with texts, and I heard that Stacy has been so upset she's had to take time off work, which does make me feel like an AH, especially since I've just been ignoring her calls. Story 4, AITA. For thinking my wife overrated when an elderly lady touched our kid, my wife and I went shopping. I went to a different aisle to get some jerky. I heard my wife scream, "Help!" So I ran over, and she was freaking out because an elderly woman hugged our son. You can tell the woman was harmless. The woman's son came along and profusely stating that she had dementia and she meant no harm, that she tends to view every child as her child. I said it was okay, and I myself apologized for my wife's overreaction. During this time, I was not paying attention, and my wife called 911 and called over security. It became a huge mess for all parties because my wife was not letting the issue go. You could also tell the son was extremely embarrassed, as was I. I was trying to relax my wife, but she was going on a complete meltdown rage, saying that his mother should be in a home if she cannot keep her hands to herself. What if she got our kid sick, tried to kidnap him, got combative and hurt him? All of which I agree are possible outcomes, but I told her none of that happened, so let's just leave it. Security states since the wife called the police, we had to wait for them to show up, so they can file a report as per their store policy. About 25 minutes later, police showed up and asked what happened, and my wife explained everything. You can tell the police were like, WTF is wrong with this woman. I felt nothing but disappointment. Police took the statement and started laughing as they left, gave the son of the elderly mom a fist bump and said sorry. My wife was upset I did not have her side. She was upset how I took the side of the son instead of her. I explained his mom was clearly sick. It was a harmless gesture, and explained she was one that acted unreasonably. I did acknowledge her concerns, but nothing bad happened. We could have just let it slide and went on with our day. She told me I failed as a husband, so we ran the story by our family and friends. It is a 50-50 split. So my BL said this would be a funny story for AITA. He frequents the sub. So Reddit was, IDOWATA. Sorry, forgot to add our kid is 19 months old. First and foremost, thanks. Secondly, I just noticed I put overrated instead of overreacted. At this point, I will see myself out, as a couple of posters suggested I ask my wife if she wants to share her side. At this point, I'm going to drop it. But if she wants to keep the civil war going, that is on her. I will take the criticisms and feedback to heart. Been a fun read, though. Back to my main and looking at BG3 subreddit.